Hello, everyone. Um, I woke this morning feeling very angry about what I'm seeing on social media, which is really the only way we are interacting with each other these days because of social distancing and quarantining, where it seems like a lot of white people right now don't understand why the riots are happening. A lot of white people are saying, I'm not a racist. A lot of white people are saying, there's another way to do it. A lot of white people maybe don't seem to care and are going about their business. The truth of the matter is race is a deep, painful issue that is still present right now. It hasn't gotten better. It's not getting better. People riot when enough is enough and when no other method of communication is being heard. So you have a black man, an innocent black man, who was killed by a white police officer. And this is a trend of so many black people being killed by the police and the police not being held accountable. This problem is not getting better. So what I wanted to do was make a video for white people, I guess, for people who don't get it, to hear what I have to say about it. I'm going to talk about systemic racism. I'm going to break it down and educate you. And I hope that you educate yourselves. We all play a part in this. We all can do something about it. You have power. Everybody has power. We are all in this together. Like, this moment, I feel, is a moment when everybody needs to acknowledge the fact that we are in this together. So black people, white people, people of color, everyone in between, like, we need to come together to solve this problem. It's not going to get fixed unless we come together and see each other as brothers and sisters and see that your pain is my pain. Your blood is my blood. Your struggle is my struggle. Okay, so. All right, so we're going to talk about systemic racism in the United States. Do you know what it is? Do you not know what it is? Let's break it down a little bit. Slavery, first of all. So the Europeans who came here and stole the land from the Native Americans, committed genocide against them, forced them on reservations, then went to Africa to steal human beings, forced them here, treat them as commodities, slaves, from 1625 to 1865. That is 265 years of slavery in the United States. 265 years. Okay. So after slavery, 4 acres and a mule legally promised to freed slaves. The government promised it, but it was not given. So this is like the argument for reparations, in terms of the government said, made a promise to give certain something and it was not given. So that's the case for reparations. Okay, 1865 to 1964, Jim Crow laws, which were legal segregation and discrimination under the law. So for 99 years, as recent as 1964, under the law, Black people were segregated and it was legal to discriminate, okay? From 1964 to 2020, only 56 years, African Americans have been recognized under the law as equal human beings. That is insane. 56 years only. For those of you who don't understand why riots are important and why protests are important, I would like you to answer the question of what civil rights movement, what movement for any person, any oppressed person, females, gay people, any group of oppressed people, how has equality ever, how have we ever moved towards that without protests, without riots? Martin Luther King, I don't have the quote in front of me, but I think I remember it. Martin Luther King said, riots are the language of the unheard. So it's like, if nothing else works, all the peaceful protests, you know, then that is a way to stop asking and start telling, because human beings, we deserve rights. People deserve rights. So let's focus less on judging and shaming the rioters, and let's focus more on holding the police accountable, and let's focus more on dismantling white supremacy. So going back to systemic racism. Brief overview of some basic points. I'm sure there's more. Redlining. Okay, this is where areas populated by African Americans were blocked off from access to public and private investments. Banks and insurance companies used these maps for decades to deny Black people loans and other services based on race. One of the best ways to build wealth in America is to buy a home, but redlining could allow banks to refuse African Americans these loans based on their race. I'm going to cite a study from the 1980s, an investigation into the Atlantic real estate market that showed that banks were more willing to loan to low-income white families than middle or upper-income African-American families. Also, studies as recent as 2017 show that redlining is still affecting home values today in major cities such as Chicago. Another way to build wealth is through education, but education is very challenged in Black areas because schools are funded by property taxes, so the quality of education is much lower. Also, taking it back further, for a long time, Black people were denied opportunities to higher education through legal segregation. As a result, as recent as a study in 2019 showed that for every $100 of wealth that a white family has, a Black family has $5.04. Then there is implicit bias and Black unemployment. Studies show that resumes with white-sounding names get twice as many callbacks as resumes with Black-sounding names. This is one of the reasons why Black unemployment rates are twice the rate of white unemployment rates, even among college graduates today. Then there is lack of political representation and incarceration rates, which are much higher than non-Black Americans. Black Americans are also much more harshly sentenced for committing the same crimes as non-Black Americans. Despite all of this, Black Americans, against so many odds, have achieved greatness in this country in every field and profession in healthcare, technology, education, business, science, finance, advertising, social services, mathematics, politics, all areas of the arts, sports, and professional athletes. All of this was accomplished facing so many obstacles that white Americans do not face. Not only did African Americans physically build this country, but so much, if not most, of American culture in terms of music, dance, fashion, and culture comes from African Americans or has been heavily influenced by, but not often credited. Interesting that white people can love Black culture to the point of appropriating Black culture, but are still not willing to fight for the rights of Black people. So I encourage white people right now to take action. Like I said, this is something that we need to, a problem we need to solve together. Everyone needs to be on board, is my opinion. Decide what your best course of action is. One thing you can do is educate yourself. There are books that you can read, there's documentaries that you can read. There's a lot of ways for your own personal education about white supremacy in this country, about Black history in this country. Start a petition, call government offices, sign petitions, attend a protest, talk to your white friends about race, talk to your family members. Start talking, start having the race conversation. It's uncomfortable because it is charged, and it is charged because it's still an issue, and we heal through having conversations. White shame, guilt, defensiveness, saying I'm not a racist. I think personally that's a natural stage of white healing, a racist mindset, and it's okay to feel that way, but don't get stuck there or stay there. Continue to listen, continue to educate yourself and understand. Mainstream media glorifies the privileged perspective. So the most privileged in this country are white, heterosexual, male perspective. This is what is pushed in media, magazines, movies. It is the history that we learn in schools. So it is very important for those of us who find ourselves to be in the privileged sector of society to do our part to educate ourselves about different perspectives and realize that we are all different and equal. You're not going to naturally learn about this from looking at the media because it's not going to tell you. You have to do your own research. From what I have heard from listening to Black perspectives, to say that you do not see race is actually really insulting. We are different races, we are different cultures, but our differences are to be celebrated. We are all equal, different and equal. This is something that I personally learned a lot thinking, you know, as a feminist, and learning that what I thought was feminism was really white feminism, that feminism is different in each culture. Each race of people, every country has a different idea of feminism, has a different idea of being a strong woman, has different struggles that you're dealing with. And white women do that a lot. We'll say this is feminism, and we don't acknowledge we're talking about the white experience and not including women of color and Black women. So yeah, there's a lot of education to be done. White people, be willing to talk about race, be even more willing to listen about race. I'm gonna say that again. Be willing to talk about race, be even more willing to listen about race. White people have the tendency to make conversations about race all about them by defending themselves and saying you're not racist and blah, blah, blah. So just like kind of shut up and listen and be a little more humble and be willing to learn. And like, it's okay to make mistakes. We're all human, we're all growing. Hopefully we could do this together. And yeah, that's all I have to say.